So I've been told that Honda mowers are great mowers, but they also tell me they have some strange problems that no other mowers have. So we just got this free Honda mower up and running. However, we need to take care of a couple of nasty problems. That way, it'll be ready to work for a really long time. The thing is, that's easier said than done because when you see the hassle we have to go through, it might make you not want one. So in today's video, we're going to be looking at this Honda lawnmower. And the problem is that it has some oil leaks, and if not taken care of, could cause some serious problems later on. Now, oil leaks don't sound that bad on their own, but remember, this is the stuff that's supposed to keep your engine from wearing out too fast, so it's very important not to have any leaks. Of course, it is your lawnmower, and if you feel like letting it leak and then just topping it off before each and every use, then I'm okay with it too. But I will let you know that even I would get very tired of having to add oil to the engine each and every time. And if you feel the same way, then maybe it would be a good idea to fix the leak and not have to worry about it ever again. So our first leak is at the shaft for the governor on the carb side of the engine. And our second leak is under the front of the engine at the rod for the cam. Neither is fun to fix, but this one will be even tougher as you're about to see. Now, luckily the parts we need to fix these two leaks aren't terribly expensive, but the fact that we still have to do it is a bit annoying. So I'm going to choose to fix the leak on the governor shaft first, only because I find it to be just a bit easier than the other one. And to start off, I'm going to try and clean off as much of the dirt and oil that's trapped around the shaft. Now the reason why is because this is where the seal is going to sit, so it makes sense to have it as clean as possible. We'll then disconnect the spring for the arm and then loosen the nut, that way we can take the arm off. So with the arm out of the way, we can see even more dirt in the area where the seal needs to go. If you do use compressed air to clean this pocket, be very careful and use some eye protection. Next, we'll take off the retaining clip and then give that pocket one more good cleaning. Now because there's still gasoline in the fuel tank and the fuel line is kind of in my way, we'll just shift the tank's position for better clearance. But before installing the seal, just make sure the flat side is facing outward. And while holding the shaft stationary, carefully slide the seal onto the shaft up to the pliers. You'll then need to reposition the pliers to the other side of the seal so we can work it into the pocket. Now for this part, I like to use two small wrenches to work the seal in place, but there are other ways to do this. And once the seal is as far back into the pocket as possible, we'll then install the clip and then the arm. Now this repair isn't for everyone. If you're not careful, you could do some serious damage to the engine, so please take your time. Once the arm is back on the shaft, the nut's been tightened and the spring reconnected, check and make sure the arm is moving like it was before the work. If not, the engine speed might be affected by it and you'll need to do some adjusting to the governor. So next up is the part that I'm not looking forward to. We'll start by taking out the spark plug, but this would also be a great time to inspect it as well. Now the tip of the plug is in great condition, so we'll just check to make sure that the gap on it is at 25 thousandths of an inch. This is what I like to set mine to, but you're welcome to use a different value. The other reason I take the spark plug out is to make it easier to rotate the engine. So after getting all the valve cover bolts off the engine, you're going to notice that the cover is stuck to it. And the reason it's stuck is because the factory used some kind of sealant, which is a huge hassle in my opinion. So why would they use a sealant instead of a gasket? Probably because it's much cheaper and faster during manufacturing, but that is just a guess. So next up, I'm going to rotate the engine until these two marks on the bottom of the cam gear are parallel with the mating surface for the valve cover. You're also going to notice that this bump on the cam gear lobe lines up with this mark right above it. I'll then take my 5 thousandths of an inch feeler gauge and see how it fits in the clearance between the rocker arm and the top of the valve. Now this one is a bit loose and will need some adjusting, but the one on the right just barely fits, which is exactly what we want. To make our adjustments, we'll start by loosening the jam nut and then turn the adjuster in a bit and then tighten the nut. Once we tighten the nut, we'll then check it again with our gauge until it too just barely fits in the clearance just like the other one. Now for some reason, I insist on taking the rocker arms off even though I don't think you need to. So you are welcome to leave them on when replacing the O-ring. Next, we'll push out the rod for the camshaft and then expose the old O-ring so we can take it off. Now I probably could have made this a whole lot easier by just cutting it free. But instead, I made it a whole lot tougher by taking it off in one piece, so I'll leave it up to you how you choose to do it. Now surprisingly, I thought the old O-ring would just break on its own, but it was quite durable even though it was leaking. So I'll let you know that this shot was very difficult to film since I needed to be in a good spot to install a new O-ring. But after several minutes of struggling, I finally managed to get it into place. And after spraying it with the lubricant, we'll then push the rod back into place. Just make sure that the notch on the rod is facing towards the front because part of the valve cover will go there. I'm also not sure why this seal leaks on some engines while others seem to not have this problem. Now, I wouldn't call this problem very common because I've only had to do this a handful of times in the last decade, but it's certainly something to watch out for if your mower has a Honda engine on it. And once the arms are back on and before you close up the engine, check and make sure that all your marks line up. Otherwise, your engine might not run very well or possibly have starting problems. Now, before we install the valve cover, make sure to clean and remove all of the old sealant. Also, be sure to clean off all the oil residue, otherwise you could have another leak. So after cleaning off the sealant on the valve cover and bending it back into shape after prying it free, we'll then apply our sealant to the valve cover and then carefully put it back onto the engine. I do apologize that I didn't show it, but I'm using a gray sealant, but I'm sure the other colors will work too. So I'm going to do something just a bit odd. I will install the bolts, but just barely tight. I also have my drill set to the lowest setting, and that's because I don't want to completely squeeze out the sealant, but I do want the sealant to make good contact with both the cover and the engine. So this is what it should look like with the tab on the valve cover resting in the notch and holding the rod for the cam in place. The plan is to put everything back onto the engine and then wait for the sealant to partially set up. Now that could take anywhere between 24 and 48 hours depending upon the temperature and humidity before I torque down the bolts. Now I do find this method with the sealant to be quite annoying, so I would definitely consider using a gasket next time. So this is the next day, and with it being well over 90 degrees Fahrenheit, I think it's set up enough to torque down those bolts. Now, do you need a torque wrench for this part? Probably not, but I like the sounds it makes. Now that the bolts are tight, I think it's time to start it up and make sure it still starts and runs. Luckily, it started up with no issues at all and it ran great as well. I also didn't test the self-propel because we already did that in the last video. So I could have performed a hot start, but since we just checked and adjusted the valves, we already know it's going to start up fine. Just keep in mind that hot start problems are more than likely due to valves being out of tolerance. So if you're experiencing that problem, you might want to check the valves. As for this mower, it's now ready to be sold, but after putting all this effort into it, I might just consider keeping it for myself. But then again, having money to spend on saving even more mowers is nice too. So my question is, would you have tried to fix both of the oil leaks on this mower or just left it alone and kept adding oil to it? Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate your time here. Please feel free to ask me any questions about this project or about your own projects, and I hope to see you in the next video.